On this third Sunday in Lent, we have readings that talk about hungering for God's presence or even being surprised by God's presence. In our first lesson, we will have this dramatic encounter that Moses had with the I Am in the burning bush. He was wandering a little bit in the wilderness as a shepherd, not really sure of where his life was leading him, and he has this encounter with God. And then in a very close parallel to that, in the gospel, we will hear the beginning of the dialogue that Nicodemus has when he comes at night to Jesus and asks about how new life can spring forth, how the presence of Christ can be in his life. And of course, that passage ultimately leads to those very familiar words, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son." But that idea of sojourning and seeking after meaning in life, and then finding the presence of God, sometimes as a surprise in our life, those are the ideas that will really inform all of what we do on this Sunday morning. We'll come in singing a great Lent text, "Kind Maker of the world, O hear the fervent prayer, with many a tear poured forth by all the penitent who keep this holy fast of Lent." And in our hymnal, that text, which is actually a very joyful text, talking about keeping this time of Lent with anticipation for God's presence to be with us, this text is set with a French Noel, a French Christmas carol. And although it's in minor, it has an unmistakably cheery and sort of upbeat feel to it. So we hope that you'll dance along with us at the beginning of that service as we move right into this liturgy. The psalm appointed for the day also talks about hungering for God. So we have all of these recurring images of desiring God's presence. And at the offertory, the choir will be singing a very popular, one of Herbert Howell's most popular pieces, "Like as the Heart Desireth the Water Brooks," taking words from a different psalm, Psalm 42, but thinking about just as the deer in the forest hungers, thirsts for water, so our soul thirsts for the presence of God. And Herbert Howells uses a very blues-inflected tonal language to really evoke that thirst, that hungering. And you hear this longing and this desire in the notes of the melody. At the communion, our first communion hymn is number 393 in the hymnal. "Praise our great and gracious Lord, call upon his holy name, raising hymns in glad accord, all his mighty acts proclaim." And it draws some images right from that Moses encounter with the burning bush, and then ultimately with that the Israelites as they make their way to the promised land. And it is set to a tune, Moazur. Moazur is the equivalent in Hebrew of Rock of Ages. So this is sort of their version of this idea of the Rock of Ages, the stability of our faith. Also at communion, the choir will be singing some very familiar words, but maybe to a different tune than you might expect. They will be singing a setting of the poem, "Just as I Am Without One Plea." And of course, we have a lot of cultural associations with that hymn. The American composer Ben Hutto, who worked with up at the National Cathedral with both the boys' school and the girls' school there, the residential schools at the National Cathedral, he set this as more of a rustic early American tune. So it has a little bit of that early American feel to it and a much different feeling than we sometimes associate that with that text. But thinking again about how Moses comes to that encounter and leaves saying, just as I am, I will follow. So we hope that as you follow on your Lenten journey, that you will join us here at St. John's Cathedral.